mummy who has came all the way back from ancient Egypt to explain to us about mummification. The first step of mummification is embalming the body. His body is taken to the tent known as the Ibu, where the embalmers wash his body with a good-smelling palm wine and rinse it with water from the Nile River. One of the embalmer's men makes a cut in the left side of the body and removes the internal organs. The liver, lungs, and stomach and intestines are washed and packed in natron, which will dry them out. This is because the main organs are taken out and packed in nitrin, which will dry them out. The heart, however, is not taken out because it is the center of intelligence and feeling, and the man will need it in the afterlife. Afterwards, a long hook is used to smash the brain and pull it out through the nose. The body is then covered and stuffed with natron, which will dry it out. All of the fluids and rags from the embalming process will be saved and buried with the body. After 40 days, the body is washed again with water from the Nile. Then it is covered with oils to help the skin stay elastic. The dehydrated internal organs are wrapped in linen and returned to the body. The body is stuffed with dry materials like sawdust, leaves, and linen so that it looks lifelike. Finally, the body is covered again with good-smelling oils. It is now ready to be wrapped in linen.
Okay, so what he's trying to say is that Egypt is situated in the Nile Valley. In the northeast of Africa. Its origins lay in several chiefdoms in Upper Egypt, at Abalos and Hyrcanopolis, which then spread northwards, towards Memphis and the Mediterranean. By 3000 BC, the unified kingdom of Egypt occupied the entire Nile Valley, north of a series of rapids called the First Cataract. The other cataracts lay in a chain stretching south along the River Nile into present-day Sudan. At its greatest extent, in circa 1250 BC, ancient Egypt occupied the land in all directions from the Syrian coast in the north to the Red Sea in the east, down to the Nile Valley and Nubia in the south, and spreading west inland into the Libyan desert. The life of ancient Egypt centered around the River Nile and the fertile land along its banks. The farmers in the long and narrow Nile Valley developed irrigation methods to control the flow of the water so that crops could grow through both its rainy and dry seasons.
Education for children doesn't start till the age of 4. They stayed with their mothers. Sons typically followed in the same practice as their fathers. There were 2 types of schools. There was a normal village school or a school designed for a specific career. At the age of 14, sons who had fathers of farmers or craftsmen joined their dads in work. But if they had parents of higher status, they continued their education. The higher level of education was called instruction of wisdom. This focused on lessons of ethic. That's it.
In ancient Egypt, the type of government was a theocracy. One leader, a pharaoh, that people believed was God, he was in charge of everyone and everything. Religion and government were tied tightly together because the government forces people to worship the gods they want. The laws were extreme and often include punishing not only criminal but their family as well. Stop it. Socially, women had more rights than people thought. Women owned property, were able to conduct business meetings, but their responsibilities were to raise children, clean homes, and make food. Their social levels from highest to low was for a government official, soldiers, scribes, merchants, artisans, farmers, slaves, and servants. I got that wrong.
Much of the art which has come down to us as funerary art designed for the tomb. The ancient Egyptians believed that life could continue into the afterlife. And so the dead were accompanied in their graves by everyday and luxury goods, including art objects, to help them enjoy their new life. Ancient Egyptian art emphasized a rigid style, which changed remarkably little over the millennia. This did not mean that Egyptian art was unchanging, but change took place within the fairly narrow bounds. Ironically, in the declining centuries of ancient Egyptian civilization. Its art became more conservative and rigid, harking back to the glorious old days.
Ancient Egypt was based on polytheism. There were around 2,000 gods and goddesses. Some gods were worshipped all over Egypt, yet some were only worshipped in smaller towns. Often gods were represented as part human, part animal. Animals such as the bull, cat, and crocodile are to be holy. Temples were considered dwelling places for the gods, and they were at every city. The priest's duty was to care for the gods. They also had to teach school and advise people on problems. The Egyptians thought that they had.
As an
That's part of Greece.
agriculture was the main economic activity. The harvests in Egypt were richer than in most other countries, allowing for a larger percentage of urban dwellers and diverse forms of production. The main crops were wheat and barley, as well as lettuce, beans, onion, figs,
Get a
dates,
Mr.
grapes,
Fitz
nuts,
photo
and
bomb.
vegetables. Flax was grown by many farmers and then used for the production of linens. There wasn't a typical money system. Products were bartered and workers were paid in wheat, barley, and occasionally in craft parts like pottery and clothes.